Hello, I'm Bob Blackburn, Director of the Oklahoma Historical Society. Welcome to the Oklahoma History Center. This is where the people of Oklahoma collect, preserve, and share our common history. One of the largest galleries in this museum is on pioneers in the air, going from Paul Braniff and Braniff Airlines, created in Oklahoma City in 1928, to Tom Stafford and the Gemini 6, that experimental craft that set records and opened new frontiers for exploration. One of the stories in this exhibit is about another pioneer in the air, a young man from Tishomingo who would join NASA and help pull back the frontier of exploration. That man is Charlie Dry. Charlie, welcome to the Oklahoma History Center.
Everyone knows that astronaut Neil Armstrong was the first man to walk on the moon. But there's another story that is relatively untold. This story is about all the testing and training done by test astronauts that helped train Armstrong and 11 other astronauts for their trip to the moon. I can tell you that story because I lived it. My name is Charlie Dry, and I'm from a small town of Tishomingo, Oklahoma, where I learned as a young boy to work hard, persevere, and dream big dreams. My dreams of being part of the space program didn't start until I finished my college education and my military service. My career began as an inertial guidance engineer at the highly classified, top secret missile range called NOTS, the Naval Ordnance Test Station in China Lake, California, where we collected and analyzed missile data. NOTS also had what was called a supersonic sled track. The sled had a cockpit on the front with 3 large rockets on the back, and they would fire you up and shoot you down a 3-mile track in the desert at supersonic speeds. They used this machine to tell how many G's the human body could withstand. It sounded fun to me, so naturally I said, "Hey man, I want to ride that thing." Oh boy, I had no idea what I was getting into when they told me I could do it. It was the most intense ride I've ever experienced in my life. My mind went from, what the heck, to, oh my God, they're shooting me to the moon, which could only add up to one thing: NASA. I didn't get to NASA right away. I was hired by North American Aviation in Tulsa, Oklahoma as a weapons systems engineer. Boy, I loved my job. But my sights were set on NASA. I sent my resume to NASA in Houston, Texas, and was hired within a short period of time because the Gemini program was winding down. President Kennedy made his famous "We are going to the moon" speech, and NASA was in full swing with the Apollo program and needed to hire more engineers. NASA gave me a fancy title and put me to work developing and analyzing the Apollo spacecraft heat shield. I also worked at the same time as an engineer in the vibration and acoustics lab. Boy, I was so excited to be at NASA. It wasn't long before some of my buddies started talking to me about the test astronaut program. They told me that everything from spacesuits to spacecraft hardware was being tested. I thought, oh man, that's part of my dream, and was determined to learn more about it. So I spoke to the head of the Crew Systems Division. He said, in order to become a test astronaut and to be part of the test team, I had to pass several pretty tough physical and mental tests. There were only a few test astronauts at the Johnson Space Center. NASA wanted the test astronauts to be engineers. Most had families and were not willing to leave their desks, put on a spacesuit, and risk their lives in an altitude chamber. Throughout the initial tests, I was asked over and over by psychiatrists if I thought I would go crazy if I went through this test or that test. Crazy, I thought. Man, you got to be crazy to do this stuff. After passing the initial test, the testing became more serious. I underwent a couple of intense trainings to get certified in the altitude chamber, the water immersion facility, survival, zero gravity, and a KC-135 before I received spaceflight certification. I thought I was ready. However, NASA forgot to tell me when I put on my first spacesuit, I would have to lift my legs up and down for more than 1,000 times until my knees got raw and the leg cramps set in. They forgot to tell me that they were going to spin me around and around in a centrifuge twice a day for weeks. They forgot to tell me they were going to have me walk on a treadmill in a 180-pound spacesuit until my gloves filled with sweat. They forgot to tell me that they were going to prop me up in a lunar lander simulator and let it drop from 4 stories to see if I would survive the fall. They forgot to tell me that we were going to leave me in an Apollo space capsule bobbing like a cork in the Gulf of Mexico for days. They forgot to tell me that they were going to hook me up to a 1/6 gravity simulator truck and pull me around a track while hopping like a kangaroo in a spacesuit, also known as the moonwalk. They forgot to tell me we were going to test the command module for impact by dropping it from a 50-foot tower with me in it. They forgot to tell me that I was going to have to learn to pee and poop in special containers with a spacesuit on. While engineers watched, cameras rolled, I'm pretty sure that's where Let It All Hang Out came from. They forgot to tell me a lot. I have only shared with you some of the testing. There is so much more. It was a deadly, serious game of chance and what-ifs. Malfunctions and mishaps were part of the life of a test astronaut. The element of the unexpected was always there. I knew the dangers we faced all too well. One of my buddies got killed right beside me in an altitude chamber. Our testing involved realistic simulation of space travel, descend to the moon, and return to Earth. Sometimes we were tested to total exhaustion. As we evaluated what we were testing, the engineers listened to our feedback and collected the data. If all worked, procedures were written. The astronauts learned from those procedures. They couldn't do what we did because they didn't have the time. They were busy training for their own missions. My job was to see to it that the astronauts could do their jobs safely and efficiently.
And we also had a period of extravehicular activity wherein I was using the equipment that Charlie had previously tested in altitude chambers.
All right, now tell us about the flights. Charlie, we'll get to you in a moment. You were on these flights, now I understand, and then Charlie was a test crewman who was back on back at NASA. Is that how it worked, Charlie?
Charlie did all the dangerous work for us.
Yeah, well, that's not what we did. We made sure that we checked out, made sure everything worked and everything functioned properly. All Dick did was just ride the Fireball to the moon. That's all he had to do. America's dream was to be the first country to put a man on the moon. Whenever you see images of the astronauts walking around on the moon, just remember there were hundreds of thousands of inspired men and women who loved this country and were united in making America's dream come true. For the record book, I fulfill my dreams at NASA. But it took hard work, determination, guts, and a positive attitude. The bottom line is, if this country boy with big dreams from small town Oklahoma can fulfill these dreams, so can you. Thank you, Dr. Blackburn, and thank you especially to your support team. What a beautiful, beautiful facility this is.